Welcome into Doak Campbell Stadium, where we just finished attending Willie Taggart's first Monday press conference of the 2019 season, heading into this week's game against Boise State. A lot of quarterback talk. Willie Taggart talked for about 25 minutes in the press conference, which you can watch the entire thing at warchant.com or on YouTube. But probably over 10 minutes of it was about the quarterbacks, the decision last night to go with James Blackmon over Alex Hornibrook. I think it was a little surprising, I think, that he basically said on paper and statistically there really wasn't a big separation. It was more about what James Blackmon's position on the team is as a leader.
Yeah, and I don't know if that's to like build Alex up, build Hornibrook up to say, hey man, stay with us, stay engaged. We're going to need you most likely, because at Florida State, the backup quarterback does play a lot. I mean, college football in general, you're going to need your backup quarterback at some point. As I think there's only been 2 years in the last 10 where the backup quarterback hasn't started at least one game at Florida State. So maybe that's the reason, because yeah, if you're a Florida State fan and you're like, you want to be excited about the season, maybe you want your starting quarterback to have like blown the other one away. But if he didn't, he didn't. And I do think that if it was even, and I said this all along, if it was even, you go with the guy that's been here longer, that knows the offense a little bit better, because he's been here since he was here in the spring. And that, the teammates really, really love. That should not be the deciding factor, which guy the teammates like more, but it is a factor.
Well, I also think it's one of those things that it's a huge factor in preseason. Once the games start, and I do think that that's to some degree, Alex Hornibrook, and we've written it before and said it before, he would have had to have just been a clear runaway winner to take over the spot for James Blackmon because of those reasons. But I also think that all changes once you get into games. I mean, as much as they love James Blackmon, the guy, if he gets into games and doesn't perform, they're going to be interested in seeing who else can help him out. I mean, guys want to win. So the team, friendships and all those things, they kind of go out the window a little bit once you start playing games.
Yeah, I mean, the best example of that always will be Chris Weinke. I don't know that he was buddy-buddy with any of those receivers he was throwing to. Now, he was 15 or 20 years older than most of them, but he was not, I don't think he was their friend. I think he yelled at them like a coach, but they respected him. And also, he threw them a ton of balls, and they got to score a lot of touchdowns. So they didn't care who the backup was, because they really liked scoring touchdowns on Saturdays, even if they didn't necessarily get along with the quarterback and he wasn't their favorite guy. So yeah, I agree with that 100%. I think it's what happens on the field, and if they start to struggle, or if they do struggle on Saturday, the way it was set up to me right now is if Blackmon doesn't play well through the first two and a half quarters, you might think about making a change if they were that even.
Yeah, I've kind of been feeling throughout camp, and I certainly feel that way right now. I don't think this is the last we've seen of Alex Hornibrook. I mean, I do think there's a chance he could play, and that's not a knock on James Blackmon, but I do think it's a positive what you could say about Alex Hornibrook. I think he's exceeded their expectations. I think he's had a better camp than probably Willie Taggart even expected, and I think a lot of people around the program expected him to be the clear-cut backup, and I think he gave it a good run. The question is going to be, how does he handle it? Because we know he didn't come from Wisconsin to Tallahassee to be the backup and hold a clipboard. So how does he handle it at practice? How does he handle it emotionally? Because that's a big factor as well. There were other items on the depth chart I think that were interesting.
You think they really, I know that saying about the clipboard, but you don't see it a lot on sidelines anymore.
Maybe Kendall Browse has him
hold the iPad?
Yeah.
Like, I think clipboards are a 90s thing.
If I was the coach, I would make them hold a clipboard just because.
Absolutely.
Not even anything on it.
There's nothing on it. You're nothing. What is this? They don't know what a clipboard is.
Periodically, I would check. Clipboard check.
Just make sure you're engaged.
Who cares how many guys are lined up on the field? How many guys are on the field? I want to know, does he have his clipboard?
Does Alex got his clipboard? All right, fair.
Yeah. There were other notes on the depth chart. We didn't make a big deal about it right away, but Jaden Lars-Woodby has won that job over to Kalen Brooks at inside linebacker.
Not a stunner.
No, but they have been going back and forth, and DeKalen had been with the ones a lot in practice. There was a couple of, actually, Josh Kando, it sounds like Janaris Robinson beat out Josh Kando sort of by default at one of the edge outside linebacker positions because Kando still hasn't been healthy, although Willie did say he expects Kando to play this week. I guess we'll have to see if that really happens.
Yeah, but I think that was, it wasn't pointed necessarily, but when asked what he saw about Janarius Robinson, he said, well, I see him at practice every day. Yeah. So I don't know if that's not necessarily a shot. I mean, Kando can't help it if he's hurt, but obviously that's what's been the most important in that race is one guy's been healthy and one guy hasn't.
Aslan, by the way, is the only person on the staff who can spell or can pronounce Janaris's name correctly. Janaris. It's Janaris.
Yeah, you're right, Janaris.
I said it one way, you said another way.
I know. Sorry,
Either one was correct.
Sorry.
A couple of backup roles I thought were interesting. One thing I've been noticing a little bit in preseason camp, and I think we mentioned on the boards, Nardo Green is a guy that you didn't hear about as much in that young freshman defensive back class. We all talked about Brendan Gant, Travis Jay, and Akeem Dent.
Yeah.
But Nardo Green's been running a lot with the twos in practice, and he's number 2 of the depth chart behind Asante Samuel Jr. Kind of surprising, not ahead. A.J. Litton is a guy who played a good bit last year as a true freshman. I think people would have expected him to be the backup there. But Nardo Green, and you mentioned True Thompson is listed as second-team nose guard. I mean, it's impressive for those true freshmen to get in there like that.
Yeah, you think you're going to have a couple true freshmen that are going to play, at least maybe probably 3 or 4 that'll get some snaps on Saturday. I think Dent and Jay will get in the game in some capacity, maybe nickel or dime or wherever they're going to be used. I do think they'll play. And then obviously Dante Lucas it looks like will be the starter at right guard, which again, a true freshman coming in and starting at right guard. I know this offensive line has not been Alabama the last few years.
Not quite.
Not quite. I mean, I don't know how you gauge offensive lines, but they haven't been that. But for him to come in is really impressive and earn a starting role, because Mike Arnold is not a terrible college football offensive lineman. He beat out a pretty, at least an experienced player, which is a good sign for him, obviously. But I do think they just love the dude's attitude. Like, he just doesn't mess around. He's physical and mean, and they need that. Even he's going to make some mistakes because he's a true freshman. But he's mean and nasty, and they need that.
This also gives us a chance, and we have a story up at warchant.com about the offensive line and what it's going to look like now. It's a pretty different-looking offensive line, and we didn't know how different it would be. I mean, Juwan Williams is back, and Brady Scott is back at left tackle and at left guard. But, from center to right guard to right tackle, those are brand-new guys. Bavion Johnson has never started before. He'll be starting at center.
Yeah.
Much bigger, more physical guy than Alec Eberle. As you said, Dante Lucas at right guard, and then Ryan Roberts, the fifth-year senior from Northern Illinois, at right tackle. So this is
some new names to get upset about if you're Florida State fans.
Or there's reasons for optimism. Yeah. And the two guys on the left are physically different than they were a year ago.
Well, that's what I was going to say. You said there was 3. There's really, you could say 5. I mean, Brady Scott's obviously much bigger and stronger, and Juwan Williams at least says all the right things, that he's basically a different person. Like, he lifts 150 pounds more than he did, because he couldn't lift it all last year because of his shoulder, and he said he's put on 35 pounds. So he's a different guy. So it really is, I know a couple of names are familiar, but it really is a completely different group than last season, which is absolutely what you wanted.
What'd you think, last thing, what'd you think about Willie Taggart's tone, demeanor? I know on Friday we watched him speak at the kickoff luncheon, and he was kind of over the top, excited, made his promise that things would be better this year, that his team would be successful. A little bit more subdued in there with the media is to be expected. What did you, how'd you take Willie Taggart game week, Willie Taggart? I mean,
to me, it just seemed like typical Willie Taggart. Like, he's kind of low key, which is nice. He's very direct and honest with his answers for the most part, but he's low key and wasn't a lot of rah-rah, which is, hey, you know what? It's business time. It's not a pep rally, it's a press conference, and he just answered all the questions, but he wasn't over the top doing cartwheels and stuff, but it would be weird if he was.
I think my nickname should be Rah Rah.
Rah?
Kind of a play
on
Ira.
Yeah, I rah rah. I rah rah. Good stuff.
Or just Rah Rah.
I like I rah rah.
All right, well, we'll go with that. Anyway, for Corey Clark and Ira Schoffel and Aslan Hajavandi, we're signing off from Doak Campbell Stadium. Florida State playing Boise this week. Complete coverage all week at warchant.com.